Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Toku Portal podcast for, Sentai in general. I am
It's
Vash. We have no episodes this week
it's Relay
because
Race in Japan,
which who knew? Um, we just kind of expected it to just be off during golf week, which is usually what it is.
which is in the
Um,
spring.
so we're going to be doing something a little different, but still Sentai related. But to kick this off, right? I am Vashi V, and joining me today is.
Right. And today, Vashi and I will be discussing our top 10 Sentai. We were hoping Decade would be here as well, but seems something came up for him last minute. Unfortunate. Uh, so,
Which for me, this is going to be a little unique because I don't actually have a top 10, but I can fudge it enough to make do.
that works. Uh, so, why don't I start us off since this was my idea? Uh, Number 10, Uh, I have not seen. Well, I have seen 10 Sentai, and it was tough, like, once I really got down there to pick the 10th spot. But ultimately, I ended up going with Kyoryuger. Kyoryuger was a dinosaur Sentai that was very fun and unique. They did a much bigger team for the Sentai. They had your standard six, and they had four additional members, plus an Evil Ranger that made a couple of appearances. Like, it existed just to make up for the toy sale loss from Go Busters, but it was just a fun show to watch. Uh,
Well, and then they even went so far as to do the whole bounty hunter trope thing, which it was something entirely unique. Pretty much has nothing to do with the show itself, other than the fact that it has the cast as
oh yeah,
various characters.
so that was a thing that Toei does where they'll give the actors a chance to play a different character role in a side project, and that was the one for Kyoryuger. Like O's also got one.
I will have to go find that one because I
Yeah.
did not know about that.
The only reason TV Nihon normally ignored them, they subbed the Kyoryuger one because it was tied into the actual show.
Right, because it took place during all the Deboss shit.
Yeah, like news reports about the Kyoryuger activity is going on in the background, and one of the characters even dresses up as a grunt to pretend to be an alien.
Like Curator was fantastic, and every bit of that show resonates with me in terms of being amazing and being a standout Sentai. For me, like the biggest drawback for me, and it's the same drawback I have with the current Sentai Rio Soldier. I am sick of dinosaurs at this point.
Yeah, they.
I get the point of the fallback to it because dinosaurs sell. This is now the fourth dinosaur Sentai.
Correct.
No, fifth. No, wait, yeah, fourth.
This is the
My
fourth
brain,
one.
my brain split Dino Thunder and Opera Ranger is two Japanese ones, and that's not the case.
Uh, no, but uh, while Ryu Soldier is the fourth one, it did come very early after Kyoryuger because Sentai has been on the decline as of late. They're trying to like bring it back by cashing in on what has worked before, and Kyoryuger did help save the franchise a bit when Go Busters put in a bad spot.
And like it's a fantastic one. Like it even went so far as to like justify why some of the villains switch sides.
So, how about you? If you had to pick a number 10, what would you pick?
I would have to say Shinkenger because it's the first one I watched. Well, first Japanese one I watched.
Interesting.
Oh, it's because all the other ones on my list, there's a reason they're on my list beyond just being, it's one I watched. Like, I really, really like Shinkenja. The story for it was very well done. It got a little stale in certain spots because of your standard character arc tropes, but it was still very well done and freshly unique. Um, I liked the part of the reason why I liked it so much was because of the intricacy of the swordplay. Like, it was a very swordplay heavy series, and I liked that. It's part of why I liked Gosager as much as I did because I liked his swordplay.
Right.
Gosager is just on my higher on my list for a lot of other reasons.
All right. For my number 9, I went with Bokenger. Uh, Bokenger is an adventure Sentai where like they travel around collecting artifacts, and this was just a solid show overall. Uh, like by the when I finished watching, I was just like, you know what? I'm very satisfied with that. It's pretty low because it doesn't stand out too much, but if you give this one a try, you will have a good time watching it.
That's one that I'm only a handful of episodes into. Um, because it didn't grab me as quickly as some of the others did. Also because I've been watching the newer ones because, like I said, I started with Shinkenger back in 2009. So, and I had the same issue with Common Rider is like where it's harder for me to go backwards because obviously, the production value is a little bit lower. In some instances, it focuses with Rider, it focuses more slowly on characters and like Agito. Agito is slow as shit, but it makes up for it in the overall stories. Like you just gotta be willing to put in the time for it. Um, but Bokenger didn't fully grab me the way that everybody has praised it for me. But I think that's just because I haven't had enough time to sit down and actually watch it.
I think like Bokenger won't be one of your favorites, but like I said, it was really satisfying to watch, and I think that it's something that you could just watch casually and be like, yeah, this is good. This will satisfy my need for Sentai.
Uh, and for me, my number 9 was Q Ranger
Oh, interesting, because
because
I
it was really it did pick up. The issue I had with Q Ranger is the same issue we all had with Q Ranger. The start of that show fucking sucked.
right.
Like, it had its moments where it was fun and enjoyable, especially anything to do with Balance and Naga and Shouranpo. You know, all of that was fantastic. But it got to a point where really early on that characters were getting overlooked, and like there's a point that we've covered it to death when we did the podcast for it, where Red goes, "No, I don't want to be the leader," and everybody just turns around, and goes, "Okay, you're the leader,"
God,
ignoring the fact that Hami said, "Hey, I want to be the leader," and
they
like
don't
never
even give
really
her a
gets the
chance.
chance.
They don't even give her a chance.
Um, but the show in of itself did pick up really, really well after pretty much towards once this whole Stinger Scorpio arc started. Like, the show got immensely better really fucking quick. Towards the end, it did kind of hit a few missteps, but is understandable that it happened. But all in all, it's like it was fairly unique enough that I did get to the point where I was enjoying watching it and actually looking forward to it until the botched ending with that.
So, Key Ranger did get a lot better as it went on, and I have to admit, the final battle where they're like all fighting against an army for 3 days. That is one of the best like climaxes in any Sentai. I gotta give them credit for that. Like emotions were high, but ultimately the series just failed to like break the barrier for me. It just didn't stand out enough.
which which is which is fine. It's like, and it's like when we were doing the podcast, like, oh, it stood out, just not for good reasons.
When I think about Bokenger, I think about how I enjoyed it. When I think about Key Ranger, I think about how it disappointed me.
Which again, it's extremely
Unless I
understandable,
think
like,
about
'cause,
Naga. Naga is the best character.
oh yes, Naga calling out Show Lumpo's bullshit was like the highlight of every episode it happened in. Um, the part that I think ends up sticking out for everybody was the mishandling of characters and the fact that one of the characters that there should have been contention with, i.e., Garo, with his whole storyline, should not have played out the way it did. Because it starts out with, in the first episode, I hate you because fuck you, my entire clan, my entire species was destroyed. Fuck you. To getting his ass kicked by Lucky and going, you know what? I will follow this man to the death.
I
To the point where I will be mistakenly gay for the entire fucking series.
I maintain that the first episode of Key Ranger should have been the first 3 episodes.
Oh yes, absolutely. Like, the best aspect of the first episode is literally Lucky's transformation.
Lucky cast Meteor.
Like, it was the best aspect. It's the only good thing about that episode. Um, but for me, it does stand out enough for me that it had a lot of things in it that I enjoyed. Mainly Melon Lord, I'm not gonna lie.
Hey, when your villain is literally a common rider, you've got my attention.
And not only that, he's a common rider portraying a Sentai who's cosplaying as a goddamn common rider. It was the weirdest fucking setup, but it was golden. It was the To me, that was hands down the best arc in the entire series.
That's one of the problems is that he was their best villain, but he was their opening gambit.
Right. It was because I think they were banking on the payoff for the final villain to be a lot more meaningful than it was. Except for the fact that the only person on the entire team that had a meaning to was the one guy who was frozen for 90% of his life. Other than that, it was like, okay, yeah, we just got to go kick his ass.
Yeah.
Like,
There was no there was no team connection to him and there was no audience connection to him.
because literally, it's like he got introduced solely so we knew who he was when it was revealed that he was the villain. Like, I think that was one of its biggest drawbacks, aside from misusing characters and also building props that break immediately.
Pegason, that's right. Okay.
Which I figured Toei would have done a lot better of a job than that.
I don't know. So we have a comment from Drago who is listening in. Itachi Melon Lord and Sasuke Scorpion. Cannot escape Naruto these days. So for my number 8 pick, I thought about it, but ultimately I went with Geki Ranger. Uh, Geki Ranger is very different for a typical Sentai. Uh, it handles itself a lot differently, but it's some of those differences that make it work for me. One of the aspects being just the way they justify the power ups for the teams. Rather than just like occasionally, like, all right, here's a new power up just because, or the bad guy like gets one new thing and so the heroes have to match it. Like, no. You have the villains and the heroes constantly pushing each other to get stronger, like every 2 to 3 episodes. They're constantly improving themselves and working their ways up the same ladder. And it's that clash that carries itself throughout the whole show that just blew me away with how well it was executed.
Like, and not even, and to go a little bit beyond that is like some of the bigger power-ups they legitimately had to train to use. Like, it wasn't like your typical, oh, look, you found this artifact. Now you get a power up. It was, no, go train with this dead master for, a couple of weeks and then we'll see how you do. Like, it was very well done. And I will admit I ended up watching that one after I watched the American version of it.
Oh, me too. American version sucks.
The American version was good in its own rights.
Yeah. Uh, Out of like the Disney era, Jungle Fury was not their worst one. Jungle Fury was watchable.
It's like I think the biggest aspect I had with that show was the fucking Blue Ranger in our version being very Bruce Lee-ish, and not in a good way like Meteor was in ours. Like, it was bad, stereotype, over the top, and it's like, I don't care that you made the character Asian. This is just racist and bad.
I couldn't watch. Every time I sat down and watched Jungle Fury, I would want pizza, and that upset me.
I will
But
admit it made me want pizza too.
like Jungle Fury, like when I say it sucks, I'm being a bit harsh on it. It wasn't bad. It just was not up to par, but it was still watchable in the end. Unlike Operation Overdrive.
Like, I think the biggest thing that killed Jungle Fury for me were those fucking sunglasses. Like, so this is an issue that I have, and I understand this is gonna go off on a little bit of a tangent here, but I hate how drastically certain sets of Power Rangers drastically alter the transformation devices or change them entirely from the Japanese counterpart, which for the most part, usually they don't. Usually they leave them the fuck alone.
Sometimes they reuse ones for a different thing.
Like with Beast Morphers. It's pretty much the same thing. They just made a fucking key for it. Why it needed a key, I don't know.
Or the Magna Defender in Lost Galaxy used the Die Ranger one.
Like, I mean, and they're changes enough to where it's not that big of a, oh my god, what the fuck are you doing? But then you get shit like this. I understand that the transformation devices for Geki Ranger weren't that fucking great. They were just the fucking gloves. But it looked a damn sure lot better than putting on a pair of
Because like
sunglasses and pushing a button on the side of them.
the gloves were just helping them like summon their animal spirit or whatever that became protective armor. And the sunglasses are just sunglasses.
With a button. It's like it was one of the worst changes about the show.
Comment from Drago. Uh, Jungle Fury was decent, and he likes RJ. RJ was really like the best character in Jungle Fury.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Uh,
Um uh, for me, for that, because we're what, seven
No, we're
or
still on
eight,
8.
eight would be have to be Juoja for me.
I did not watch Juoger.
Aside, stupid gorilla packing peanut suit aside, it was really good. It was fun. The biggest drawback to that show was they Drago's not wrong. Drago said that the sunglasses didn't bother him because it's more marketable that way. To be honest, no kid is going to buy gloves, and he's not wrong. Especially American kids. American kids don't want gloves; they want cool shit. Um, to me, the big one of the biggest issues with Juoger was the fact that it put in the stakes of here are characters from another world who are basically humanoid or anthropomorphic animals that are using this little device to hide the fact that they're animals, so they look human.
But from what I gathered from Juoger, it didn't matter that they were animal people. They could have been human and nothing would have been different.
Yes, exactly. That's the biggest fallback. Like it does add some funny moments when they are like all at home because he's staying with I think his uncle in a tree house of sorts, and so they're using that as a base of operations. And his uncle's unaware, has no idea that they're animal people, and like he'll walk into the room, and you'll have three of like one will be unmasked, like in their animal form, and they'll be just like trying to block his view, and it's really funny, and it's the only time where it really matters. But to me, it was still ended up being really, really good.
Well, I'll.
All the worst thing about that show was the final villain.
Oh, yeah.
And that killing off his one person who didn't care just because Toei hates females.
I will be giving Georgia a watch at some point.
Like it is worth a watch. I think I'm gonna let that comment slide. You can read that one if you want.
Drago is commenting on how the Georgers being animal people is good furry bait. So, Veshi, you were saying?
I have to add to it just one in particular for me.
Is it white?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the only one that relatively looks cute in animal form. Everybody else, cause like Sella as a shark doesn't
She's a
it doesn't
shark.
look. It's not even that. The shark face is all fucked up and shortened, and it just looks weird.
But then you have the cute cat.
Yes, which makes up for it. Um, like it has its really good moments. The worst thing about it is it's very red centric power ups,
Oh,
and then
yeah.
they also they introduce a character very early on in the show, that later becomes a ranger. But it was kind of put in there. Oh, if you do this, you might die, and then that just never really gets touched on. At least not with any consequence to it. It pretty much goes, I know, and he does it anyways, and that's about the end of it. Every time it happens, he just whatever.
One of my issues is that Red gets a power up for the whale, and the costume looks so good it should have been its own color as a seventh member of the team.
The worst power up is the very end. his last power up.
Yeah, when he mixes all of them together, I saw that.
Because that just looks terrifying. That is nightmare fuel. But to me, Juoja had one of the best characters ever.
Juo the World.
Juo the World. He's a character who very much has confidence issues because he starts out as a villain. He got brainwashed and forced to have the powers of three of the Juoja animal people. And he starts off as a villain. They save him, but he's so broken because of all this that he literally has crippling depression and codependency. So if you even remotely make an offhand remark like, "Oh, that's a dumb idea," he'll be in the corner pouting for like an hour. But he's such a fun character to watch, especially when he shows up in this past fucking movie, and
Oh god, that
which is the
cameo.
which is to me the best cameo in all of Sentai. Who
I,
the fuck are you? Don't ask questions, just go with it.
I have heard people refer to him as bipolar.
Oh yes, but it's because he'll be very, very happy. Somebody will make an offhand comment, and he's in the corner. Then somebody will say something nice, and he's all happy and cheery. He's a very back and forth fucking character, but he's lovable because of it. Like there are points where, like to start with, you're like, "What the fuck is this?" But the longer it goes on, it's like, "This is just funny to watch." Which I understand from my standpoint makes me a terrible human fucking being, but I don't care. I know you shouldn't be making fun of making fun of bipolar people or people with depression and all that, but you can't help it with this show.
So, moving on to number 7. For me, I ended up going with Go Onger. When I started this series, it felt like it was trying to harken back to more something closer to the 80s. That was the impression that I got. And it seemed a little weird at first, but then as I kept watching, it just kept working. And it is phenomenal. Like the way the characters just uh, work together with such different personalities for each of them. It's like you picked up all the misfits and threw them into the same team. And that's before silver and gold are introduced. And the villains, like, they with their own like little subplot and just the way that they hang out with each other was charming to see, and how they handled just some of their different weird ideas. I recommend anyone watch Go Onger.
Which I can validate that one because you continuously try to get me to watch it. Which, to be fair, I was, but then I formatted my computer and
Oh, you
lost where I
lost
was
it.
at. Well, so when I re-downloaded it I don't remember where I was at, so I got to restart it again.
Also, the Go Onger theme is one of my favorite ones, and will sometimes get stuck in my head.
I will admit I do like the theme song for. And I have to agree that's at the same point on my list. Even with what I did watch of it, it's a very fun Sentai. Like it's got its serious moments, but it's fun.
You're also putting it at number 7?
Yes,
Oh.
and also because I like one of the villains.
Oh, which one?
I'll give you three guesses, which is funny because for
Yeah, there.
90% of it, there are literally only three choices.
Oh. Oh, are you talking about the air guy?
No,
Talking about the big dude?
Nope.
Oh, so you must be talking about the sexy robot lady.
Yes, the sexy robot lady.
Uh, I knew that's who you meant. I was just toying.
Oh, I know. Like, I don't know. It's like she was just always a very fun character. Like, especially to the point where like I watched the 10-year anniversary special. So, spoilers for anybody who hasn't watched, you know, the series from 2008 and then the 10-year movie that came out last year for it. She transforms into the Yellow Ranger.
But she still has her like machine, some of her machine
the
parts that are sticking
like
out of the suit.
like the steam crank on the top of her head. Like it's a fun series. I'm not I even with it as far as the fact that I haven't completed it. I've gotten to silver and gold. I know that much. I don't know where at in that, but I've got to silver and gold. And my God, are they much better than the American counterpart?
Yeah, RPM did a lot of things right, and I would rank it high on my favorite Power Rangers series. But the villains do not hold up to their Sentai counterparts.
Not even close. Um, for me, the best thing about the American counterpoint was fucking Ziggy.
Ziggy. uh,
Ziggy was fucking great. I could have done without Dr. K, but
oh,
I got to have somebody who created this shit.
my one of my favorite scenes though from RPM is when I think Jack the Red Ranger questions Dr. K on why she designed their Zords with big goofy anime eyes.
Oh yeah,
And
that was
she's just
fucking
like,
great.
"What eyes?" Like, what do you mean, what eyes?
Like that was a good nod to the Japanese counterpart
Right.
because they're sentient in
Yeah.
Japan in
In
Goanjo
in Goanjer, they are living machines.
from another dimension. And where here it's just no, she just created them and
She just created them, and so that was an intentional design choice.
just don't call it spandex.
So for my number six, I chose Shinkenger. Shinkenger, like with Vashi, Shinkenger was the first Sentai that I watched, and it is really good. Like, I wasn't sure if I would find one that I enjoyed more for a while, but I did. But Shinkenger is just it's a very serious, intense Sentai, and it while it does leave room for comic relief and such, just the way it handles itself, uh, it's a lot more mature than some of the other Sentai, especially with some of the villains. Because the villain's ultimate goal isn't to just cause, like, havoc or mess with people. Like, it is to drive people to the point of depression and use that to, like, fuel their lifeblood. They literally survive off of it, and they want to flood the world with it.
Like and it's handled beautifully. I'm not gonna lie. Um, if not for a few other series on here, it would be higher on my list. Um, like
Uh,
the to me one of the best parts of that entire story for Shinkenger was Red coming to grips with actually and honestly truly being a leader that they want to follow willingly rather than just because they're supposed to.
like, if I had to complain about anything, I would say it would be the stupidest moment in the entire show, which happens like near the final arc. The main villain himself steps out for like a quick fight. He can't last long in the human world, which is why he doesn't isn't active, but this is a moment so serious that he himself decides he is going to risk his own life to step out. It is something that he is willing to die for. And so Red, using his ultimate power up, challenges him head on in a one on one battle, and they just start flying for no reason.
Yeah, yeah, that was bad.
It was really weird, and it killed some of the tension in the scene for me in not a good way.
Like, I think one of the best things that this series did, even though it didn't last very long, was we had our first ever female Red Ranger.
That was also really good, especially with the reveal about why.
Right, like it was done very legitimately. Granted, again, it didn't last long.
Oh, Drago has joined. Uh, he is muted right now, so we'll keep going until he's ready to talk. Um, Vashi, you're number 6.
Gokaiger.
Yes.
Very, very well done. It could have been done a lot better. Because the whole big thing with Gokaiger was the fact that it was the anniversary series. And to me, they did it a lot better than Ryder has done with these type of series. Like to me, Gokaiger is what Zio was trying to do, but played wonky with time travel and changing the story. It was all kind of stupid.
Gokaiger was someone saying, hey, what if we made Kamen Rider Decade, but good?
Like, and it was done really well because it started off explaining why none of the Sentai members had their powers anymore. Like that was the opening to it, which fuck you, Super Mega Force, for making that the end of the series. You dumb fucks.
You know what? I have to take back what I said about Goanger. This is the Sentai where they literally grab all the misfits and throw them together.
Quite
Especially
literally.
when they add in Silver.
Silver, and this is why this is so high on my list, is because of Silver. Like, Silver would literally be any of us if this shit was real.
Like, hey, did
We
you
would have
know?
Yeah.
been
Did you know this Sentai could do this?
like we would literally be the fanboy of the fucking group because we know everything.
I'm okay. I this is Gokaijo was literally my first Sentai that I saw, and then I was so bloody disappointed when I saw the American one.
Oh,
I like I was like there were so many possibilities, and you didn't even try. That was I face palmed really badly when I saw the anniversary for Power Rangers because Gokaiger was such a wholesome and lovely series that I really enjoyed. That it just so good. I really wish that I really wish Rio was even as half good as this. Cause yeah, they really fixed like all the stuff that was wrong with Decade, and then they applied it and made it better. And especially the circumstances behind like why so many returning actors were there was kind of sad, but it really helped bring joy the throughout the dark times that was going on back then due to the earthquake in Japan.
Gokaiger is so good that it's actually my number 5 choice.
Like for me, I think the best thing about Gokaiger was, granted, I didn't see much of anything prior to Gokaiger, but I knew enough or a good fair bit of them to be able to go, okay, so that's who that is, that's who that is, that's who that is, because I'd seen enough here and there of episodes of series that I could place certain characters, like when Goshi shows up towards the finale of the series. I knew who he was by sight.
I knew who Doggy Kruger was from SPD,
Um,
even though I hadn't seen Deca Ranger yet.
like the series, it's handled really, really well. It has a wonderful comedy in it and excellent badass moments. And one of my favorite villains of all of Super Sentai, Bosco, a character who literally spends 90% of the show just dicking with the Rangers.
Yeah, Bosco is amazing. Like seriously, that Bosco makes the entire what do you call it, the battles really fun because there's not like hero versus villain. There's a third faction right there who is more threatening than the actual villains in the series, and he was really a wild card like as far as things go. Especially when he showed up with the extra heroes. Yeah, that time it was really good.
Hey Drago, would you like me to add you to the doc here, and you can give us your top 10?
Well, I can't say top 10 because I've only finished five Sentai series to completion.
Oh, okay.
Oh, oh, cool. So we're
uh,
almost at
well,
five.
so let me ask you, what five Sentai have you seen start to finish?
Um, Lupat, Q Ranger. I think. Wait, I'm like only. I think. Wait, I think I finished Q Ranger as well. Time Ranger, Jetman, and Go Busters. Wait, one. I think one more I have. Uh, yeah, I think that's about it.
All right. Uh, so, Gokaiger was my number five. Vashi, what was yours?
Go Buster.
Go Busters was good, but I enjoyed a lot of other Sentai more that I didn't have room for it on my list.
Like for me, the main three reasons why I liked Go Buster. One, because I grew up watching Power Rangers and hearing it's Morphin time in a Japan Super Sentai was fucking amazing to me. This I enjoyed the story of it, even if it did flub a little bit towards the end with the whole Messiah thing.
Right.
But to me, by far, Jin and Jay by far made up for that. They were a fantastic duo. Like to me, borderline Balance and Naga. And Balance and Naga are at the top of my list of buddies in Sentai. Like it was very unique, and the story actually hooked me in and kept me in the entire time. I think the worst aspect of it was the pushing and enter back for escape.
Escape was a good character, but uh, yeah, there were times where it felt like she shouldn't be overshadowing Enter.
Uh, to be honest, I kind of disagree with that. I thought that, like, I was kind of getting sick of Enter after a certain time. I think Escape just helped it break it up a bit better for me. So I was not sick of Enter as much. I like Enter a lot. Like, he's one of my favorite villains in Tokusatsu, but still, like, what Escape did was that she broke apart some of the stuff that, like, some of the pacing issues that Go Busters was having with having Enter constantly be there, and that actually made it more fun when Enter was in charge again,
Like
like of the story and narrative.
like I agree. It really really well. It's like, but personally, I really fucking loved Enter, and like I didn't have a problem with it being Enter centric for the entire series. I would have been perfectly okay with that. Um, but yeah, it's like the story was unique enough, and having the characters have flaws that could be exploited, I think made the show very, very unique and very interesting to me, and it was why it's so high on my list.
Did Drago just drop out?
I think he did.
He did. Okay. Oh, there he is. So, Drago, you said you finished 5 Sentai, but you listed off, I think, a bit more, like 6 or 7.
Oh yeah, right. Okay. Uh,
Um,
wait.
so,
Yeah, I forgot that I recently finished two. So I think my number six would be Q Ranger because I like Q Ranger, but again, it I really didn't like the beginning part and the end part. The middle was really strong for me, and it is basically the it had all the extra rangers got more focus than the core members. So yeah, that I didn't like that. But again, it had too big of a cast for me, like to enjoy everybody. But I really did enjoy like whatever was given, like whatever they did in the middle section. The beginning I didn't, I was not feeling it. The end was really something that pissed me off, kind of. But the middle was really strong, so I think I like Q Range the least out of the Sentais I've finished. Not saying I don't like it at all, but I do. The Q Ranger is was good, but it was not great. That's that's why it's on number six. Number five is still Go Busters, same as Bashi.
okay.
Yeah, the only reason why it's low is because I couldn't stand the buddy roids.
Really?
Yeah.
Uh, like, when it comes to comparing Go Busters to Beast Morphers, I actually liked that Go Busters incorporated them more, and was a bit disappointed that Beast Morphers just kind of set them aside and only included them because they're there.
Uh,
Yeah.
it's I'll give Beast Morphers credit. At least they did more with them than RPM did with the sentient vehicles. Like they didn't write them
Uh,
completely. They didn't write it completely out.
then again, I what I feel is that the Power Rangers shouldn't always stick to the whatever the Sentai is doing. So I don't really care about whether or not like Go Ranger had the sentient thing and RPM didn't. But in Beast Morpher, it's like yeah, I think they're a bit underutilized. Uh, but again, they're not overbearing sometimes. They're not overbearing as much as like I found the Buddy Roids to be. That's the thing. The only Buddy Roid quote unquote that I liked was Jay. Because Jay was amazing. uh,
Like,
He was the best one.
and they had
yeah.
best and they had one of the best team up movies ever,
With
Yeah,
where they
the
teamed up with
themselves.
Dinosaur was
themselves.
really good.
But there's only
Oh
one
right,
J.
that one also. Yeah. I really like that. I really like the Dobutsu and I Go Buster movie. But again, yeah, this one, Go Busters was really good though. Like the way they incorporated the story and the like the characters in on itself. Since the first episode, I really enjoyed this. I even really enjoyed the spy theme. Um, but and then also Enter was amazing. Like he's one of my favorite villains in Tokusatsu, and that's the one of the reasons why I really like him. And he's really charismatic as well, which scores a higher point for me.
Like
Not to mention the actor was really attractive as well.
I love Enter mainly like ignoring his skill as an actor and his skill as Enter itself. The reason I love to Enter the most is because of Enter, I know a lot more French than I ever knew.
I don't.
He shows up every episode and speaks some new line of French every episode.
I think I remember him saying Sabon or something some like that.
Ça va. Ça va. But he ends up saying a lot in French, and if you're quick enough with like the TV Nihon's subtitles, you can they have the translation up, but it's not up for very long.
That's fine.
And then of course, and then just like any other thing that gets introduced that needs to be explained, it gets explained once, and then that's it.
I'm someone who doesn't mind like pausing to read like an explanation.
I had taken French for like 3 years, and when I was in school, so I could understand some of it when I was watching Go Busters. So I didn't really need the translation as such back then. So yeah, since I'm really out of practice, so I forgot all of whatever I learned, and now I would need that. So yeah, Beast Go Buster would be number 5 for me.
Moving into our top four, uh, I'm opening up with Tokyuger. Yes, the one with the trains.
Just to make this go a little bit faster, that is also my number 4.
All right.
I have a feeling our top 4 are going to be very very similar, if
Very. I
not
think.
exactly the same.
I think the final three are going to be in a slightly different order, but two of them are going to be the exact same. Um, Toki User is a fantastic Sentai. It is. It's very like Saturday morning cartoon with its like light versus dark themes, but the villains are the best villains I've seen in any Sentai. They have their own character arcs where some of them even question why they're the villains and will even go against their own team because they realize they're on the wrong side. Uh, it,
Hell, one of the Rangers is that.
yeah, yeah. He the sixth member is the first to have defacted.
Like, and like even the villain is very he's a very understandable villain because he's not a villain for villain's sake. It's just that's what was thrust upon him because of his creation, for lack of a better term. Like he all and but all he wants is to grasp the light. He doesn't want to be a bad guy. He just has no choice in the matter. And
Drago.
also that rainbow power up.
Uh,
Oh, and the penis turn attack.
yeah, that's why I said that one with the trains. uh,
Uh, that's one thing I'm really planning to check out because everybody has recommended me Tokyuger.
it's really good.
Like the one of the worst aspects of it, and it's only a bad aspect until you start piecing things together, are the finishing moves of the bazooka.
Right.
Because it's some of the most absurd, childish bullshit,
But then you
which
find
makes
out
perfect goddamn
that's
sense
the
at the end.
point. Yeah. The Tokyugers themselves are pretty weak characters, but when you find out why, you can give it a little bit of leeway.
Like it ends up having given enough leeway that makes the series amazing. And the attention to detail in it, like there's things that happen early on in the series that you wouldn't question, and then you get the reveal of it and it goes, oh well, all of that shit makes sense now. Because there's so many little moments that, looking like going back and watching it, knowing all that, it's like you see a lot more of where they were feeding just a little itty bitty taste of it that don't amount to anything as you're watching it from episode to episode until you get to that reveal, and it's like, oh, I see now. That makes sense. It's expertly done.
Drago, what would be your fourth?
Time Ranger.
That's one that I want to watch. I really liked
Oh, yeah.
Time Force.
Okay, no, wait, not Time Ranger. I think my number 4. Okay, wait. I think okay. I think I have to switch my Go Busters with Cure. Wait, just let me check. What I forgot something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it would be Time Ranger. It would be Time Ranger. Because
As
okay,
as
Time
number
Ranger is
four. Okay.
basically yeah, number four. Time Ranger is basically Time Force. Like okay, what I mean is like the premise and everything is the same, and some of the characters act similar and they have similar dynamic. The only thing is that some characters are more interesting in Time Ranger and some characters are more interesting in Time Force. Like
Oh.
the time, yeah, that's
It,
so
which one does Green fall into? Because I liked him in Time Force.
okay. The Green from Time Force is basically the same character in Time Ranger. That's that's how
That's all I
similar it gets.
ask. That's all I ask.
Yeah, and Yellow's role is since Yellow is the played by a female actor in the Time Force. Yellow is played by a male actor in Time Ranger, and Yellow's personality and time and in Time Ranger and Time Force Blue personality in Time Force is literally the same, except Yellow in the Sentai is the more interesting character,
Ah.
which and he's like his womanizing aspect also has like some what do you call it? There's some depth behind like him, and like there's some episodes like especially that episode. Wait, I forgot who was that reporter person was there, and then in Gokaido we get the resolution about him having a son in the past. That I really like, and I really like the mob aspect of Time Ranger than mob aspect of Time Ranger. But only thing that the Time Ranger lacked was a overarching villain as such. Like it didn't feel as satisfying to like how in Time Force there was Rancic, but in Time Ranger, it's not like that. It's just a mob boss, which I really didn't.
Ah.
I didn't really mind. I enjoyed that, but the week to week plot was really good, and I really like Time Fire and Time Pink. They were my favorite characters in that show. I still think Time Fire was a bit of an ass, like to everybody till the end. I there was no like how Eric got some form of redemption or like no, he became a lot nicer, not redemption as such. But Time Fire was an asshole through and through. That's what I really enjoyed about that character. But yeah, what do you call it? The red in Time Force was like I felt a bit more responsible and compared to Red and Time Ranger, but they feel like completely different characters. And the pink and the red romance in Time Ranger was decent. It was not handled as well in Time Force, but I know I'm comparing Time Ranger and Time Force, but it's literally most of the episodes follow the same pattern and the same thing. Like it's not even there's just a connective issue in Time Force compared to Time Ranger, which is more episodic, which is really worked well for that series since they're time cops, and then Deca Ranger follows the same thing later on. But this Time Force was a really, especially when the foundation for having a pink leader was established here, and it was really well written by Yasuko Kobayashi. And the characters were very entertaining for the most part in Time Ranger. You can't even talk the plot as much because how episodic it is. So, and it's been a long time since I've seen this, but yeah, but I really did it. And the parting episode, the final episode was I did tear up a bit. So yeah, that's the only thing I can say because since it's been a long time since
Well,
I've seen this
I
season. But yeah,
I love hearing you this passionate about a Sentai, though. Uh, moving on to the top three. Uh, I wanted to put this at number two. I wanted to put it at number one, but I have to be honest with myself here. My number three Sentai is Deca Ranger. Uh, De- Vashi?
Mine too.
Yep. Deca Ranger is a space cop Sentai. It is incredible. Uh, like Like Vashi was, sorry, like Drago was saying, it doesn't have an overall villain. It just has like a criminal of the week that the cops have to track down and such. A lot of the action is this crazy cool gunplay. Uh, they they do a lot with like the mystery aspect of the show and have like, oh, because they're also detectives, they have to like track down the criminal and such. Just it is a blast of a series, and it was my favorite for the longest time. But I have to concede there are two that are better.
And I agree. Like Decker Ranger was my top until 2011. And it's a phenomenal show. Watching the characters evolve, where they start out, where like Bond being the brash, Russian head first to being a very good, competent leader was fantastic. Watching, uh, I am really bad with names, so I'm not going to remember anybody else's name but Bond's. And Bond, Kruger, and Swan are the only three names that I remember.
That's all you need.
Wait, and Umiko, because Umiko is the best. Um, but just seeing the entire cast dynamic grow, and like you said, it's like there really wasn't an overreaching villain, even though they tried to kind of play that off.
No, no, all the criminals just bought from the same arms dealer who got tired of all his clients getting arrested slash blown up.
Right. And then so he just decided to fuck it, I'm gonna do it myself. Um, but it was still done really, really well. The show is fantastic. Like they even touched on like racism and stuff in that show,
Oh
and
man,
done in
racism,
a
police,
in
corruption, like so
like
many.
they touched on so many fucking social issues that were just amazing.
Like they straight up have an episode about a rich kid like going around committing crimes, thinking he can get away with it because he has money, and like one of the cops has to perform an illegal investigation just to find out he's doing anything.
Like it's a fantastic show and has some to me some of the best mech fights. Like the fact that they a lot of the mech fights are like literal like shootouts. The hiding behind a building and waiting to catch your target off guard. It's like it's fun to watch, and it's done really well, really really well. And like the main good guy, the leader of the team, is so good that all America did was make it leather and rubber instead of fur. That's it. He's the exact same character, slightly
And
less, bite your head off, but
and Deca Ranger actually like made something from America canon in the
Yeah,
in Magic.
Backlighter.
Yeah, the Battleizer in Mad Ranger versus Deca Ranger. The red shows up with the Battleizer.
that's right. That did happen, didn't it?
It did. They made that canon.
Like it's and like I said, like the show is one of the more expertly done, especially seeing as the whole cop thing is kind of unique to Sentai. And like it for something that was so unique, it killed it on immediately and was fantastic from start to finish.
The biggest complaint I've heard about is that the characters are kind of one dimensional, and that's true, but I still really like them.
And that's the reason why I don't like Deca Ranger. I dropped it in the middle.
Like with the way that they wrote the characters, it's like them being one dimensional is like it makes sense. And there is growth enough to where like with Bond, he starts out very one dimensional. It's like the further you get into the show, that kind of backs off from being that way, and this character shifts and change. I will admit that doesn't happen for most of the characters. The most the closest we get to it, I think it's Umaka and Sen.
When they start dating.
Yeah,
Yeah. Uh, One of my favorite episodes is when Umiko is dating someone, and Sen finds out that the guy is a criminal who uh, proposes to women and then like steals their life force or something. And he tries to like arrest the guy and take him out without Umiko even knowing. But Umiko like finds out and she realizes what's going on and she makes the hard decision to take him out herself. But you also get a really good one with Blue where he's up for a promotion and he has to solve an investigation by himself in 2 days to get the promotion. And he finds out that like he actually has a personal connection to the case and there's a big moral gray area into it because the criminal has a good justification for what he's doing. Uh, and Blue finishes the case and arrests him, but he turns down the promotion because he realizes I'm not emotionally ready for this. Drago, what is your number three?
Gokaiger.
Yeah. uh, any more to say on it?
You are no. I just love Gokaiger so much. I love that family of six rangers, and I think it's hilarious, and I really like the final battle as well. Uh, Gokaiger is so good. I can't even say. It's also the fact that I have like nostalgia surrounding Gokaiger because it was my first Sentai. That's the reason why it's very hard. But I also really enjoyed Gokaiger's characters the most, even like with how like they up themselves and how each of them were to Zangiak, and in the end they went from like they just didn't want to deal with the Zangiak as in a direct conflict to actually being the protectors of Earth, even if only one of them was from Earth. Like them learning about the culture, the heroes of Earth inspired them to be, and that I really enjoyed. Is Gokaiger? I really like the team in Gokaiger. That's what makes that Shintai for me, and Vasco. Yeah, that's
like
the only thing I want to say more.
I forget who it is, but it's in one of the movies. It's an older um Sentai character who did like three different characters.
Oh
Okay.
right, Kenji Oba.
Yeah,
Kenji
and
Oba was
all three versions of him, and like they literally filmed all three versions and just overlaid them so they're interacting with each other, and it's fucking amazing.
Who is he?
yeah, especially Sheriff Gavan. I think Battle Koslak and one of the Blue Rangers in one of the Sentai. I forgot. Yeah, he was three people. Kenji Oba was Special Sheriff Gavan, and he in the crossover basically three of them transformed together, like same actor as three different characters transformed together into their respective suits, and it was really really cool. Yeah.
Sorry. All right.
So hey, what's your number two? I'm pretty sure I know what it is.
Are you? Do you? I don't think so. My number two Sentai is actually Magi Ranger.
Oh wow.
Yeah, you know what my number one is though. Magi Ranger, like this and Deca Ranger were fighting for number one for me for a while, but ultimately I have to admit, Magi Ranger is the better show. When I think of what a Sentai should feel like, Magi Ranger is the example. It is the model Sentai. Like, there, it is a team of siblings who fight together, and you get this sense of together and wholeness between them that just make this show stand out in such a good way. And that's before getting into the actual plot, which has this whole like hell is trying to break loose and they're fighting against that to stop it and such, and they get their powers from heaven. Like, there's so many good points to this show, and all I can say is watch it.
I have to admit it's on my list. Well, on my list to watch. It's not on my list for this.
Right. Uh, is your number two what I think it is?
Go Sager.
Okay. Uh,
Um, I have to admit Go Sager is my number two. Um, to me, the only downside to Go Sager for me, and is the only reason why it's not my number one, is the rotating villains. Um, I was initially okay with it until it became very obvious way early on
what the
that
twist was going to be?
yeah. So the villains for Ghost Sager, there's throughout the series. There's three different sets, one for each arc, and then you have the final arc where, oh my god, this guy's the villain. Well, no shit, he's the only guy who's been in all three teams. But the story itself was handled exceptionally well. Because it follows three groups of angels that have came to Earth, and then shit
No,
went south,
no.
and they can't go back to
To
heaven.
to clarify, rookie angels in training.
And they were on Earth when some shit went down,
Like, they are training on Earth when the bridge to heaven gets destroyed, and so now they're the only angels available to protect the Earth.
and like it even touched like the fact that they touched on why one of the sets only had one member instead of two. Well, because the other one kind of got killed.
Poor Deca Green.
Like, and it's the story itself is it's exceptionally done, if not for that one glaring problem. Like all the characters were very likable throughout the entire show. Um, one of the best parts I liked about it was, and from my understanding, this is yours as well, the fuck it, we don't need a leader episode.
Yeah, like, I mentioned it plenty of times, but like, they take turns just like take turns being the leader, and all of them like come to the realization of like, I'm not qualified to be the leader because I don't know what the answers are. And then when it gets to Red's turn, he doesn't even take his turn. He's just like, let's just work together like we normally do.
Right. His theory is if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
And then at the end of the episode, all the others realize, like, Red is always there for us when we need him.
So like he becomes the de facto leader. They still do everything exactly
Like,
the same way. It's
there,
just
there's
yeah,
no leader. It's just if there was going to be, it would be Red.
like it's done really well. The story is very intriguing and very well done. The only glaring ass problem with the entire show is the changing of villains and the very obvious who the main villain is.
Drago, number two.
Jetman.
I had a feeling.
Oh wait, can you guys? Yeah. Jetman is really good. Like it's one of my one of my favorite Sentai because the characters are so fun. The villains are like, I think some of them are really campy, and even the monster designs are very funny at times. But the way that they take all of it like so seriously, and also the fact that like a lot the villains are at really threatening. If you the main villains are really threatening. The especially the Black Ranger is one of my favorite characters. Guy is one of my favorite characters. He he's a like he doesn't work well with the rest. Like
He's the basically the template for all the sixth rangers that came later. In my where like the sixth ranger, the one guy who's like standoffish, doesn't work well with the team, and all of that. But they do him really well, and it's such a good character arc for him to be part of the team. And the romance between red, pink, and black, the love triangle thing, was also really well handled. I mean, like, some of it is a bit dated in my opinion, but at least it is really well handled though, for even for its time. The some of the storylines that happen, like episode a week, it's more about exploring what the characters are rather than getting to the point. And when the main villains show up, like there's a villain who is basically who's a who's a robot who chomps cigar and drinks wine, and that is one of the best images I've ever seen. And the way, and all of the villains feel threatening, which I really enjoyed in that show, and especially the ending. This is the one Sentai I saw that was pre New Ranger, but it was really well done. I think it's one of my second favorite Oshiki Inoue show. Yeah,
And to take from Phantom Strider, before we get into number one, let's discuss some honorable mentions. Mine would be Go Saiger for all of the reasons Vashi listed. It is a really good Sentai, but it's also it's a very generic Sentai. It doesn't do anything bad, but it doesn't stand out too much either. I enjoyed it for what it was. It just didn't hit any particular heights. The leader episode was really good, though.
Like, my honorable mention is not an official Sentai.
Oh yeah, go ahead, go for it.
Akiba Ranger.
Akiba Ranger.
Akiba Ranger, which, if it was an official Sentai, it would be by far my favorite fucking Sentai ever. That show is pure fucking gold. It basically, what would happen is if a bunch of otakus got drunk and thought they were in a Sentai. Like, the entire
they,
series
they,
is nothing but delusions because they're drunk or drugged or some unknown dumbass reason for why they're just out of their mind.
and yeah, they're straight up having delusions about being a Sentai. Like, they in their minds they're like fighting the monsters and whatnot, and they like do the big cool explosion finisher thing, and like they watch footage of themselves in the real world and they're standing outside a mall shadow boxing.
Like, it's fucking great. And to me, one of the best things about that show was the red one explaining all the tropes. And no, if you, well, we're gonna lose this because it's the mech fight and we're on the wrong side.
Red is a Sentai otaku, so he knows all this. Yellow is just a cosplayer, so she's in it for the outfit. And blue,
who's also very much into yaoi.
yeah, and blue is she's mostly just kind of there. Season one Blue is actually really good though because she makes an effort to understand Sentai and see what Red likes about so much. She actually sits down and watches Bokanger and realizes like, okay, cool, this is I understand it now. Adventure. Season two has a different Blue who I don't like as much though because she's always looking down on the whole thing.
Like, but yeah, that show is just pure comedy gold.
Drago, any honorable? No, we're going through your whole list, so you don't have any honorable mentions.
I have not finished it yet, but I think Shinkenjo would be my honorable mention.
Okay. So, I have a question. Do we all have the same number one?
I'm going to assume that at least me and you do.
Yeah, we do. Because the number one for Vashi and I is Lupin Ranger versus Pot Ranger. Drago? Drago,
I,
no.
I think Drago's mic messed up, and or he forgot he's muted. One of the two.
Well, we can find out in a moment. But yeah, Lupin Ranger versus Pod Ranger. A single show with two Sentais. You have the team of cops and the team of thieves. And then the villains are just like the mafia that the thieves are trying to steal the treasure from while the cops are trying to stop them and also arrest the thieves that are basically
Breaking the law.
what's the term for it? Cuz
Vigilantes.
vigilantes, yeah, cuz they're being vigilantes and such. Okay, Drago is just having some problems, so he'll be back in a moment.
I'm very curious if that's literal or just an overall
I
statement.
don't. I do not think that is literal, but who knows?
So his reason for it says monkeys started attacking.
Be right back.
I'm very curious as to see if that's
You can ask him when he gets back. But yeah, you have a Sentai that you have a show that has two Sentai in it, and they utilize it to its full potential. Because these two teams are competing against each other. They have different goals. They have different objectives. They have a different party makeup. Like while they both have their leader, stoic and goofy members, those members are not the same. Like Pat Ren Ichigo is very strict and all about the rules and such and how to do things. Lupin Red is very loose and aloof and go with the flow.
it's like, and then for like the strict member of the Lupin Rangers, that would be Blue. Like to the point of he's ready to kill a cop just because they're even remotely close to finding out who they are.
Whereas Pink on the cone, I think.
Okay, I'm back.
I just got a reconnection successful
Yeah, I
message, but I never got a notification that we were down.
I don't think we were down for very long.
All right. Well, worst comes to it, like we have the audio. Um, Drago, what's your is your number one Sentai also Lupat?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to make
Also,
sure before I put it in.
real quick, now that you're back, was that a literal statement about monkeys attacking?
Yes, it was.
Oh,
I'm
Yeah,
now
monkeys
slightly.
literally showed up.
I'm literally now more interested in that than what we were doing. Not even gonna remotely lie, because that's not something you hear every day.
Oh, okay. Okay,
story
so
time.
since I currently live near the hills, and there are forests surrounding the place I live, like monkeys literally show up to the terrace, and then since like people were cleaning the we were cleaning the terrace like over there, and the monkeys literally showed up. I had to literally go with the stick to chase it out. I tried to chase it away, and then I tried to chase one of them away, but it was too big and started attacking, almost attacking me.
That is fucking great.
Yeah.
Well, Drago, you made my night.
Shit happens.
Not like that here. I can honestly say I'm 35 years old. I've never been attacked by a monkey.
Okay, these monkeys like literally climb electricity wires and then they show up to the house.
Considering where I live, like even a moose sighting is kind of rare. All right. So Lupin Ranger versus Pat Ranger. Drago, any comments?
I love this show so much. it is it was literally it's okay. Lupin Ranger was the part ranger. Like I know that it gets a lot of flack from most of the community for not having a plot, quote unquote. But the relationship that was forming between Party Ranger and Lupin Rangers, like in the background, while they, I know that not figuring out their identity was a bit of a stretch. I agree, but I'm really glad they saved it for the last part of the show because it was more meaningful and it was really satisfying to watch them work together, and especially at the last episodes. You know how much like people were complaining that the part rangers didn't get like power, but then you realize the part rangers are effective without them, and the moment the part when Red got the his battle the gold armor, that was so satisfying to watch, and especially and it really like it really warms up your heart to see like how much like they became clothes, even if their ranger identity and their job description like split them apart. And that was one of the, and what I do agree that one of my gripes with the show is that Noel is a bit I'm not really too like he had a bit of issues. Like I did like him a lot. Him black backflipping a lot in the show since his appearance, but like and I liked his storyline, but I feel that it could have been handled better. Otherwise, it's a fantastic show, and especially the fact that I really liked like the two red and in the stage show they actually kiss. That was surprising, but like a welcome one.
Like
Like,
for this show,
Uh,
I have one gripe and only one gripe:
go on.
the underuse of Zamigo.
Yeah.
Like he was teased through the opening and through the start of the show that he was going to be very impactful upon the story, and he really wasn't. He was just basically some guy who was off doing his own fucking thing.
We were real excited for him early
Zamigo, in
on.
my opinion, okay. Sorry.
Uh, I was just saying, we're real excited for him early on, but it took too long for him to actually get involved and do anything. Drago, what are you gonna say?
I think the monkey started tagging again.
Uh,
Um,
like,
to me, like
Yeah, it was kind of that problem, but and it got resolved. But yeah, this one, what do you call it? Zamigo, I didn't mind as much because he was just a means to an end, in my opinion. Like at the end, but while watching the show, it did feel like yeah, okay, he's not doing much at all. Sorry.
uh,
so one of the praises I can give this show though was the restraint to not just shove all of the gimmicks into our faces like toy sale, toy sale, toy sale. Like no, they actually withhold themselves pretty well, taking their time on introducing both teams and their mechs, and we only see them work together and combine into one giant mech like 3 or 4 times across the entire series and movies.
and it justified it each and every time. Like to me, that was the best part that they didn't just, oh well, we've got him introduced. The first arc's over. Let's chuck them all on the same side.
I think my favorite comedic scene is the first time they do it. The Reds are matched up with each other, and they're getting along. Like Kyrie just keeps pushing Keiichiro's buttons to the point where Keiichiro's yelling so much that uh, Goody just like changes out the seats, and Keiichiro just drops into like the pipework, and both Kyrie and Noel are just like looking down, like, "Whoa, what's going on?"
Like honestly, to me, that while that was great, my favorite comedic point was when they were talking about going undercover, and uh what the hell was his name?
Which
The
one?
commander, the commander.
Hilltop?
Yes, Hilltop. When they start comparing him to like movies that they've seen,
Eddie Murphy.
Eddie Murphy, Eddie goddamn Murphy was fucking gold.
Oh, twice they do that.
Yes, and it's phenomenal. Like I will honestly admit that he was one of the last characters I thought I'd see in Sentai in the role that he was. Um, because there's not a massive African American presence, or well, African Asian, I guess, would be this particular case. Presence in Japan, especially within the acting community, you have a handful that are usually just one-off monsters. Um, because like primarily you had like the one of the cats in O's. But having him so prominent, and the fact that he'd throw in English, like he was still learning, like he was somebody who wasn't normally in Japan, that he was like still kind of learning as he went. It worked really well for his character, and he's by far one of my favorite characters in the entire show. Um, and then coming off of Q Ranger made the mech fights in the show so much more amazing because there were legitimate fights. And then going to so far as showing you, repercussions of one of them where the cops stepped on one of the monsters.
That's right, the giant mech stepped on the monster who hadn't even appeared yet.
And it set up for a good little, funny point in the show. It's like, and it was great. And then you have the camera work. The camera work in the show is fucking perfection. The mixture of, I don't necessarily know what to call it, but the free floating camera,
The
while
GoPro thing.
right, but it's done in a way where it's not from the Sentai members' point of view, where like you have a big massive fight and the camera's swinging around throughout the fight, and you're seeing that all of this is going on all at the same time, and you can kind of piece together where everybody is accordingly, rather than it just being a bunch of hard cuts from a standing camera. The camera work is beautiful and is one of it, and it is a masterclass on how to do that. But by far my absolute favorite thing about this entire show is this is a masterclass on how you can develop characters and not have to focus on plot.
Yeah, the story is very simple, and it doesn't develop a whole lot. Like, at the end, it's basically the same as when it started, just with more characters and more motivation involved, because the characters grow and develop.
Like,
And
and
yeah, one of the biggest compliments I can give this show is that even if it is episodic, it still feels serialized because the actions of one episode affect the next, like affect the episode that is coming like 5-10 episodes later. Like it feels standalone but still connected at the same time, which
And
is one of the best things you can do.
they set up and foreshadow a lot of things super early. Like there's an episode where Pink makes an observation, and I was real excited to see what came of that. And by the time it happened, I'd pretty much forgotten about it.
and it's done so well. um like to me that is everything Sentai should be, especially in the setup the way they had it, to where like seeing them very much both on opposite sides of cops and thieves is like, but then seeing them interact as people, because identities are a secret, and seeing them grow to actually like each other as people themselves adds to that aspect of the conflict towards the end of it when it is finally revealed that, oh, these people that you've these that work in the cafe that you've been going to for the last 40 episodes are really the bad guys that you've been chasing down. And it, especially for Kyrie and Keiichiro, having that come to a head the way it did was masterful.
Like, when I say that they take the advantage of having two teams to its fullest, I truly mean that. Uh, One of the biggest worries was that the teams would be interchangeable and wouldn't matter, but that's not the case at all. The only similarity between them is that they use the same kind of gear, but their suits are different, their styles are different, their actions are different. Like, there was that movie where the Lupin Rangers use the Pat Rangers like suits and are can't even fight in them because they're that different. They're meant for a different style.
Like they're meant for brute force and defense, whereas the Lupin Rangers are meant for agility. Like it's expertly done. Like I cannot express how good this series is. Aside from that one little flaw of Zamigo being underused, or rather underutilized, was amazing.
And sometimes you have a problem where, like, why does the main villain take so long for them to get involved? And different Sentai have different workarounds. For this one, like, the main villain is retiring. Like, the whole series, the mafia are basically like trying to score points to become the successor when their boss retires.
It's like, and one of the first time he gets involved is literally because you fuckers are boring me. Fuck you all.
Yeah, one of them like calls him out in person to come and watch him, like not through a screen, but like, hey, be there and feel it when I like totally take out the cops. And he fails so hard that the boss just like takes him out himself and finishes him off.
And then dicks off for the rest of the series until, ah shit, might as well fucking deal with this myself. I mean that's literally was the end of it. Was, I'm just gonna deal with this myself. And even the way that they handled that with splitting it up between the Lupin Rangers just going off and fighting Zamigo and creating that opening for the Pat Rangers while they're fighting the main bad guy. Like, it's excellent and well done and leads to a very touching moment where they think they've killed them. Only to have the last episode go, yeah, no, we're fine. Hi.
Drago, any final thoughts?
Yeah, since you both have said whatever I really wanted to, but yeah, I really love Lupin Ranger as a Part Ranger because okay, the one thing that I really thought that worked best for this show is that the toys were not selling, so they stopped focusing on the toys.
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, like they show a lot of restraint and just they focus on having a good story rather than trying to just flash the toy products in your eyes, which I really appreciate because it worked out super well. Yeah, you can have your toy balance of toy sales and like story, but for this show to like favor the story and just have the toy sales be the undertone worked out really well. They become a bit more
Yeah,
prominent
it
later
worked out.
on.
Yeah, okay. What I was saying is it worked out a little bit better for the show, but for the toys, oh,
Oh yeah, no,
that was
toy.
a bad.
Yeah, no, this
Wait,
show sold poorly on toys. It's unfortunate because it's. I
Yeah, it
feel
was
like
so
we.
good. And okay, what I was gonna say, and I don't think that they're gonna try this kind of thing again, which I'm really kind of disappointed in, because how bad the toy sales were.
Like, and that's the downside I have our current Sentai Rio Soldiers, like because after such an amazing series, like Rio Soldier feels very much like a backpedal, and them falling back into that trope of fuck the story. Started out kind of meh. It's been picking up a lot over the last handful of episodes. Like it's been getting progressively better, but to me, it still doesn't hold a candle to what Lupat did.
Uh, so, thanks for joining us on this little journey through our top 10 ish Sentai. Uh, this is a franchise that has been going on for a long time now, and I can't recommend enough that if you like superheroes, you give this one a shot. If you think it's gonna be super cheesy because you didn't like Power Rangers, there in most cases the Japanese version is a lot better.
I kind of disagree, but again,
This is a series that's been going on since 1975.
yeah,
If you do want to give this a try and don't know where to start, we just listed off near like over a dozen different Sentai that we all think are good for one reason or another. So feel free to give any of them a try.
yeah. Sentai, to be honest, is not my preferred. Tokusatsu, I don't enjoy most of the seasons, but some of the ones that I've listed, and I think I might enjoy some of the ones I have not seen, but these are really really good. Like these in except with the exception of Q Ranger in my opinion, but others are really well done. It's a really good show, even if like some of the aspect might be cheesy. It's some of the aspects might be cheesy, some of the villains might be a bit campy, but the thing is it has the heart. Whenever the shows have heart to them, that really makes it appreciate like the format, the in my opinion.
Like for me, Sentai will always be near and dear to my heart. I started with just like I'm sure most of us did. I started with Power Rangers. Found out that this is something that's based off Japanese stuff. Never really had a chance to get access to it. I found a couple of sources that I was able to get it from, and I've been using primarily TV Nihon to get them because mainly because it's the easiest one of the easiest way to get it, and the translations are actually fairly good, and I love the little twerks they do to it. But Sentai will always be near and dear to my heart. So it's like I love seeing what all's done with it and seeing the series grow as a whole and the changes that are made. It's always very fun to watch. Like even if it's a series that I'm not into, it's still very fun to watch. It's like if you take Rider versus Sentai, Sentai is very much let's be cute and bright colored and fun rather than serious like Rider is. Is like, and it's a good. It's a to me that's a what makes it very unique and very good, and a very good companion to watch with Rider is for the episodes of Rider that are very very dark and grim, like XH Christmas episode. We have the Sentai side where it's very fun and upbeat, even when things do get serious and kind of there are moments within like Lupat that get kind of dark, and same with Rio Soldiers. Like it's still a very fun ride to be on. Like if you haven't gotten into Sentai beyond what little bit you found through the internet, it's like please look it up and watch it. It's especially primarily anyone that we've listed is phenomenal in its own right, except maybe Q Ranger.
And some of it is even available through home video releases by Shout Factory. You can go and buy that.
Um,
Support the Sentai in
sh-
America, please.
um, Shout Factory is a good place to go. I know High Dive has a lot of it.
Yeah,
High
it's the
Dive is
same from Shout Factory.
it's their streaming service. However, for those of you who want to try to save money and decide to get VRV, none of it is on High Dive through VRV. You can only get it through High Dive itself. If you're going to go that route.
Yeah,
But there are multiple ways to get it, and especially for the stuff that has been released and licensed, Shout Factory is probably your best bet. For the stuff that hasn't been
yeah. Check
licensed,
out Time Ranger and Jetman. Those
um,
are on Shout Factory.
for the ones that haven't been licensed, there are groups like TV Nihon, Overtime Subs. I mean, there's a ton of different places, different groups that subtitle this for you to watch. And in the case of a handful of episodes of Bokenger, that have even gone so far as to dub it, which was actually done really, really well. It's like, please check them out and enjoy watching Tokusatsu.
Yeah,